Okay, so we start with chapter 6. Okay, so the chapter 6 starts with the Bill is in another Phoenix meeting, which he states as endless, like it's never ending Phoenix meetings. And he realizes that the work which they are delivering, it's like the developers are very slow and then they are behind of what they've estimated, and the work is not getting to that level. And also there's no QA being done. So he's afraid that the issues will not be caught, and they will be ones finding the problems and not the QA team. So that's so they're behind schedule of their work. And then from the meeting, he gets a message from Patty, and now they're discussing some resourcing. So they are getting some new resources onboarded in their team, and then he gets the message from Patty on his on his mobile, and then very hard to see that on the mobile because screen is small. So then he suddenly goes to that building and where they plan to meet and discuss the resourcing. So there the resourcing discussion is happening. I think here we can go through this and we can discuss this resourcing, because I think this is one of the important factor. So here they are now, the Patty, he she gives them a overview that we have already started with the, we have like 150 IT operations people, and then there are 105 projects, and then that goes by 1.5 like 1.5 people per project, and it doesn't seem to fit. And then they further discuss that they are still in a this huge demand, and there'll be more projects coming in, and that will be like one person per project. And they are discussing about the numbers, and now they are coming up to the strategy and estimation of which projects they can pick, and how the work can be distributed. So suddenly they come to know that there's a compliance project which is the largest project, and it will require most of the resources. Also Brent, who was if you remember from the previous lectures, he was working on the SAN issue and the payroll failure issue. So Brent also would be required to work on the compliance, the audit project, and that would nearly consume 75% of their resources. To which Bill is not happy, and like a simple audit project, it will take 75% of the resources, and already they have the Phoenix project, which will require some work. So they have a discussion about this and how they can get out of that, about that estimation and the project discussions and all. Once that discussion is done, Bill moves to his normal cab meeting, where you see the meeting is with all the developers, the development leads, and Bill is going to address that meeting. So there the discussion point comes up. So now they're planning to come up with all the issues which they have planned, unplanned issues, and they need to come up with the solutions to it. So Bill suggests that we can write some papers, and then he passes on some cardboards to the entire leads and asks them to write the changes, whatever changes they want, and they're planning to complete that next week. So they're expecting that there would be around 50 or changes which uh, they might come up with. And but then suddenly they come to know that there are more changes, like around 400 plus changes, which are still pending, and they might need to work on that. So here they have a quick they're not in agreement with some changes, which is a basically which is a change. So they're not able to decide what exactly a change is. So there are some instances where, yeah, so they are discussing about what exactly a change is. So one of the like, is rebooting a server a change? So yeah, so they're thinking, okay, rebooting a server also requires the server to be rebooted in a good way. Otherwise, if someone else who is not in a good position to do that work, it might run into some issues, and it might impact other services. So now they are not able to figure out what exactly changes, and they are trying to discuss about basically what a change exactly can be here. So once the discussion is done, so basically, so Bill leaves the meeting, and then he has a communication with Patty, where Patty tells him that okay, they were expecting 50 changes, but suddenly there are about like 400 changes which they are expecting to go next week. And to which Bill tells Patty that okay, just drop an email to the entire team that all the changes which are planned next week should be sent by Monday, and will not require any authorization. So they'll be working on that, and whatever changes are to be worked on the next week after Monday, that would need authorization. So they're not trying to somehow prioritize which changes they have to pick first, and then so that's chapter 6. Just the brief of chapter 6, because I couldn't go into it thoroughly. Maybe Mustaq, if you have any other points to add, maybe we can cover that.
Uh, yeah, I think almost you have covered. So one thing, what here in this sixth chapter summary, that Tim doesn't know the meaning of change, which items we call it as a change, and which items or which request we can't call it as a change, like restarting a server is, I think it doesn't comes under the definition of change. So that's there in the sixth chapter. Bill was trying to find out, and he was trying to figure out that how many change requests we are getting per week or per month, and from which department we are getting, because randomly departments are sending the change request. And for example, I am from the marketing guys, and my favorite guy is Sarfraz, who is from IT guys. So like I will always contact to the Sarfraz, and he will just quickly fix my problems. So this kind of what we can say, loopholes were going on in a company where people are just trying to contact their favorite guy, and they are just trying to fix it out, and there was no any proper channel or proper tracking mechanism to do for the change request. So I think this is what the sixth chapter is all about.
Yeah, so basically it highlights the drawbacks where the process is not followed, and changes are not there are changes which are left till undone, but they're not planning it, and they're not that's why they're running into issues. So that's what chapter 6 focuses on mostly, about the process flaws, process not being followed, and how things happening. And so all the teams are not working in parallel. So that's one of the flavors of DevOps, that teams, they work in coordination with each other in a collaborative model. And they also the flavor of agile, where the teams work, and they kind of share the deliverables they are working on, so that no other teams are also in sync with that. So things are happening randomly here, and that's what concerns mostly, and that's what's covered in chapter 6.
And I think if I'm not sure whether this comes under the definition of design thinking. This Bill comes, Bill came with an idea to distribute the cards to all the meeting, all the members who were present in the meeting, and he was he requested to us to write down the changes which they want, like top 3 changes they wanted to have in the next week. So I think this in this chapter, I think this Bill came up with the new idea to have a change request in place.
Yeah,
Might
this
be any,
reminds me
yeah.
of my old project, where we had this board, a whiteboard, which was placed in every cubicle, like end of every cubicle, where the team used to sit together and they used to write the task plan and the person who is in charge of doing that task. And then we used to mark that complete. So every day we used to go revise that, and so that's how we used to manage the change, whatever we have to pick and for deliverables and all. But that is the old type of change management process. But so that's what Bill is trying to do here, because the new tool which they have, the change management tool, that is not working. That is not working at all, and that's why Bill just tries to give it a shot to the old process, where he distributes the cards and asks the leads to write the changes, and then maybe they can discuss. So but that the changes are so many that they're not able to discuss all the changes, and they're only able to discuss 1 or 2 changes, and there's still 50 odd changes to be discussed. But then everyone is happy that okay, at least they have something to discuss in that meeting, and the meeting went well. And even some of the leads, they tell Bill that okay, the meeting went well and we were able to discuss the changes. So that's what all about chapter 6.
Yeah, and one point also we missed, right?
Yeah.
Why people were unable to follow the change request. I mean, why people are not using the change request tool? The reason number one is that delay in approval process. If someone is
Yeah, correct.
say requesting today for the change request, he will get the approval after 1 week or 2 week or one after 1 month. Reason number two might be, so this bill mentioned that the use I mean change request tool was not that kind of user friendly. Like for example, if they want to, if any lead want to mention the server names, so if they will start, user will start typing the server names, it will take only 64 characters, and after that it will not accept. And because of that it will lead to the incorrect data, and sometimes too many information user needs to do, like drop downs value not correct or something kind of. So that tool was itself not a kind of user friendly. So this is also one of the points in this chapter 6.
Yeah, also the no the when we raise a ticket or when we raise some request, we assign a tag like it's a urgent, it's high priority.
Mm-hmm.
So and these requests were going to Wes and Patty, who were handling this request, but they were not, these guys were not approving it. It would take 3 days of time to approve that request. So also they're discussing if they can come up with some tag which is extremely critical and which can get approved as soon as they raise the request, and they can implement that and plan that change. So uh, basically the entire structure they're working on, it's collapsed, and they're not trying to fit in into one team, and they're working individually. So Bill now, he gets the idea, okay, maybe he needs to work on this, and he's thinking, okay, what a mess he is into it right now. And maybe if he had this idea of that he would be going through these many things, then he would have ran out of that room where he had a discussion with Steve to for the promotion. So he would not accepted that promotion at all. So he's thinking that, okay, I am into so much mess right now. So all of that ends chapter 6. So chapter 7, Bill moves to his desk, where he gets a call from Stacy. Stacy is Steve's assistant, which we saw from chapter 1. And Stacy tells him that there is some person, Eric Reed, who is in town. He is one of the board members, and he wants to meet all the leads basically. So to which Bill says that he is currently in a lot of he's a lot busy and he's a lot of mess, and he asks Stacy whether this can be delayed until Monday. But Stacy tells him that, okay, that cannot be delayed, and he's in the town for only for one day, and then he wants to meet the leads, and can you come over to have a meeting with him? So to which Bill agrees, and he goes to that building number 2, where Eric Reed is no he's expecting Eric Reed, and there's a meeting about to happen. And also Stacy just tells Bill that, okay, there's some good donuts and some coffee which is on the serve, and you can come and enjoy that also, just to give him some bribe so that he comes, and at least for the coffee and donuts he comes to the meeting. So Bill, our guy, he moves to that building 2, where Stacy is sitting, and he moves to the meeting room, where see a person who is like he thinks that he's like a service delivery guy who has come. What he is doing, that person is kind of arranging the donuts into a tray, and Bill thinks that he is some service delivery guy from that donut company, Vandal Donuts, which is very famous in that town, and it takes like long queues are there outside that donut shop to get donuts. And the Bill goes there, he grabs a cup of coffee, and he's taking the donuts and talking to that person who's thinking that who he's thinking that is a service delivery guy from the donut company, because the man who's kneeling down and arranging donuts, he's like a very ordinary looking guy. He's having a wrinkled khaki pant and like untucked denim button shirt. So it's not at all looking like some IT guy or some kind of professional person. He's looking some ordinary person. So Bill starts having a talk with him that like this is was our favorite point when like me and my wife used to visit there every now and then, and the donuts are very good. And he picks up the donuts and he starts eating them. So that person, he gets up and he shakes hands with Bill and tells that I'm Eric. to which Bill is surprised. Okay, holy crap, this is Eric. So he's thinking that this guy is some service delivery guy, but he's Eric, and then he suddenly keeps that uh, plate of donuts which is having. He keeps that aside, and then he shooks hand with Eric, and then now they have having a discussion about. So they get introduced to each other, and Bill tells him that I'm the guy who Steve chose to be the IT operations lead three days back, and I'm into no, I'm to the new position now. So Eric is something. He's kind of a person. He asks Bill, what exactly are you working on, and what is work basically. So to which Bill, like he's trying to understand what work definition of work he can provide to Eric. So Eric is expecting something from Bill, that what exactly Bill is up to, and what is he trying to do, and what work he's trying to complete. So to which Bill tells him that I'm onto the Phoenix project, and Steve has appointed me to get this Phoenix out of uh, out on delivery and out on production as soon as possible. So for me, that is basically work. Getting Phoenix done right is work for Bill. To which Eric is in disagreement. So they both leave to a plant site. So going further into the chapter, so now Eric is in a mood to not show Bill practically what work exactly is, and he's trying to teach Bill. So they both move to a plant, the nearby plant, same organization, a nearby plant, where some goods are getting, like some goods are getting processed. So they go into the alley where some raw materials are getting from one side, raw materials are coming in, and from other side they see finished goods getting out. So that is kind of an inventory, and so they further go ahead and to one of the desks where uh, Eric tells Bill that, okay, if you clearly observe, if you closely observe this desk, so there are some jobs coming in, and those are the raw materials, and then what is going out is some finished goods. So he gives him example. He tells him about one story about the one person, Mark. Decades ago, there was a person, Mark, who was working on one of the desks which they are currently pointing to, and he used to pick randomly one of the jobs. So if he is getting 20 jobs coming to him, so he used to pick the first job and he used to start working on that. So when Eric sees Mark picking up the first job and leaving the 19 jobs like without attended, so he asks him, okay, why have you just picked one jobs, and how did you prioritize the first job with the any other 19 jobs? To which Mark says that this is the first one coming, first job which is coming, and this is what we need to work on, and other jobs are still left unattended. So that was the reason why other jobs were like not completed, and it was creating a bottleneck because jobs are coming in. So 19 jobs are still left unattended, and only they're working on one job. So 19. So next day again, he used to pick one job, and again 19. So they were creating a pile of jobs which are still not completed, and to which was like not correct as per Eric. So Eric tries to explain Bill that this is not how Mark should work. So Mark should allocate the jobs to all the resources based on the priority, and he should distribute the work so that there are no bottlenecks. And if something is done before the bottleneck, then that is something worth. But if you do something after the bottleneck happens, then that is worthless. So they are discussing about this is how Eric tries to explain Bill that this is how they should work, and even he tries to explain him the four golden rules of what exactly they should look into. Oh, sorry, let's cover that. Okay, so now Eric tells Bill that, okay, so there are four things which he needs to understand. and then only he can understand what and how he can work into the IT operations. The first way helps understand how to create the fast flow of work as it moves from development and IT operations, because that is between the business and the customers. Second way is shows us how to shorten and amplify feedback loops so we can fix quality at source and avoid rework. Third way shows us how to create a culture that simultaneously fosters experimentation, learning from failure, and understanding that repetition and practice are the prerequisites to mastery. So these are the three basic thumb rules which Eric tries to tell Bill, that these are three basic thumb rules, and he tells him that you go home, figure out these three things, and if you have the answer, you just he hands him a slip of paper with the phone number, Eric's, which has Eric's number. Eric gives that to Bill and tells him, okay, if you have all the answers for the three, and if you're able to figure that out, then you give me a call. So that's the what Eric is expecting from Bill, that Bill should understand what role he is in currently and what he's trying to do. Just go around and see what other people are doing and trying to fix the changes in ad hoc manner. He's expecting Bill to work on these three things first, and then once he's ready, then uh, he may give him a call. So that's what about the chapter 7 is about, where Bill and Eric. So Eric, who is a board member, he is trying to understand from Bill what work he is doing, and he then gives him a demo about what exactly and how work happens. And he's expecting from Bill now that he gets into that position and understand how to get over all the things and how to start working. So that's about chapter 7. Yeah, I think chapter 8, Shoaib, can you maybe proceed? If you have anything to discuss on chapter 7, we can have quick discussion.
One thing, maybe, and beautifully covered, Sarfaraz. One thing maybe is worth mentioning, and I was trying to point out a book here, but due to the less limited light, it was not visible. It is a
Okay.
book by Eliyahu M. Goldratt, and the name of the book is The Goal, which talks about theory of
Okay.
constraints,
Yeah. Okay.
right? And Dr. Reed introduces Bill Palmer to three things. One is the lean production system or Toyota production system. The second is theory of constraints,
Yes.
and the third is total quality management. Right?
Yeah.
It
That's correct.
all that movement started, and most of the projects were benefited during that time.
Right.
And the one thing that he says, all of them talk commonly about, is WIP is the killer. So work in progress or work in
Yeah.
process
Yes. Correct.
is the killer. So limiting the WIP, it's something that he emphasizes on. And he also talks about bottlenecks from theory of constraints, wherein he explains that if you do anything to fix whatever is before the bottleneck, or if you do anything to fix whatever is after the bottleneck, is hardly going to matter. That's
Matter.
why those things that this Mark guy was picking every day, of the 20 odd jobs, he was
Mm.
still on the number 90, right?
Yes.
Maybe he
Yes.
was not picking something that is going to fix the bottleneck.
Bottleneck. Yeah.
So it also happens with us, right? Most of the times we try to fix the processes which are not bottlenecks, which are usually something that we are already doing good, but
Good.
we need to focus more on bottlenecks. So that is also a beautiful book, actually, by Eliyahu M. Goldratt. I don't know if you have had an opportunity to read this, and I'm sorry it's not visible, but the name of the book is The Goal. So
Yeah, I
maybe in
think
some of our,
there's a mention of that book in the chapter 7 as well.
yeah,
I think I missed that part. Yeah,
yeah,
I have read that.
correct.
Yeah, thanks for covering that much.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was the only thing that we maybe overlooked a little bit. But
Yeah.
other than that, especially the donuts that made my mouth water even while reading it. So, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I think we should go ahead with chapter 8. Yeah, sure. I think over to you.
Let me share my screen.
Ship, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay.
I'm just sharing my screen at the moment. you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the first week of Bill Palmer, the new job, and now he is going to the new week. So on the Monday, September 8th. So the weekend he always spend working on the PPT. So there's a meeting scheduled with Steve, that's the CEO of the company. So he is preparing for that particular meeting all over the weekend, and he was just visualizing the things how it would be going ahead in his mind. So on the day of meeting, he in the morning he met Stacy, and when he reached at the time of the meeting, so Sarah was sitting and with Steve and were discussing on the some uh, there was some briefing about the Phoenix project to the analyst and the outside world. So they were discussing about it, and from their discussion, what Bill understood is, they have promised something, and they were very, analysts were very happy about the Phoenix project go live, and they are thinking this is something very good for the company. It's going to be very good for the company. So So when he just overheard this conversation and he thought about that, these are the promises that usually top management does to the outside world, and due to which the pressure comes to the development team and the other teams to deliver on the time. So uh, yeah, so he started meeting something 11 minutes late, and because Sarah was still discussing on the regarding the meeting with Steve. So the main agenda of this meeting was, he wanted to discuss about the Phoenix project, and as per his analysis of the last week and all things that happened, uh, for him, this Phoenix project is not in good shape, and he just wanted to update Steve on that, and he said this project is going to be a failure. And what reason he has put about this particular thing is, first thing is, uh, they don't have that particular workforce to deliver. So there is a huge demand of the work to be done, but and this demand is not from one particular uh, project. These are from different projects, and every project is getting their attention, and they everything that is coming up is on the priority. So he just wanted to understand what exactly which project they should be prioritizing. So it should be in the last week. In one of the meetings, they discussed that timeline of the next project, and they said this is going to be one of the important projects. But after that meeting, there were few findings on the audits, and payroll sort of issues usually come in between. So he just wanted to highlight this thing in that meeting. But Steve got a bit annoyed with this particular conversation, and he said, I cannot go and tell to the board members that I cannot deliver for the marketing or the sales team. The thing he put in that way, whatever it is, you have to work on all the requirements and all the demands that is coming your way. So after that particular thing, he just wanted to he again pushed the thing and say the issue is they have the very fragile systems, and that usually also break up in between, and to restore the normal operations they still have to work on it. So the one of the example is regarding the payroll failure that was due to some of these small changes, but it messed up everything for them. So what he suggested is Phoenix is really that important, then he has to put some of the compliance work on hold. But Steve was still not convinced with it, and said that compliance work is also very important. If you are not giving that particular thing a priority, it's going to be again another headache for them. So he still tried to convince and want to push Steve that okay, want he explained the project demand capacity that Bill was discussing with Patty in the we read about this in the previous chapter, that they have 1:1.5 resources. So for one project they have 1.5 resources. So there are around 143 operations people in the team, but they have approximately 35 business projects from PMO team and 70 plus projects, small projects and internal initiatives. So they have around 100 plus projects and they only have 143 approximately operations people to work on it. So he requested that at least you can increase the capacity and you can add the additional resource. So Steve again say, I can't do that. This particular project is already over budget and they are spending more amount of money than their competitors. So yeah, again, he got rejection from the Steve. Okay, so what he suggested him is, if you are your requirement is that valid, then you can go and ask the other one of your peers and make a case to them. And if your case is really valid, they should be willing to transfer some of their budgets to you. So from Steve and he cannot increase the budget to this particular request. So he said he spent a lot of time for playing for the worst case scenarios, but he needs to be more pessimistic now. He was very optimistic on weekend that this meeting is going to be in a good way, but it was not the way he was expecting it. So still he was wanted to convince that if you care about closing the gap with the competition by having Project Phoenix succeed. So he said he was saying to Steve, you're not acting in that way and you're just being we are just going to gunfight with the knife. So we have to be we are not in that particular we are not that prepared for it. So, but in the end, what Steve said is we are doing our best and better we go back and do the same. So yeah, that meeting ended again in a disappointment for Bill Palmer, and he closed before time what he wanted it, but it did not go the way he wanted it to be. So that was the first meeting on Monday for the Bill Palmer. So next thing that was in line for him was the change management meeting. So he was just thinking how he is going to update about this particular news to his colleagues Vet and Patty. But the moment he entered the change management meeting, he found out it a completely different environment. So in the previous change management meeting, they discuss about all the changes. They all the managers has to provide the change in a sticky note, and they should be providing to the IT team. So the moment he entered it, the entire room was covered with the whiteboards and everything. Inch of the whiteboard was covered with all the changes. So yeah, initially they were expecting around 50 plus changes, but to their surprise, yeah, it was the 436, 437 changes for this week, and they cannot go through all the changes in a 1 hour meeting. So they were just discussing about it. Then what Bill took this particular scenario in a positive way and say that they got a very enthusiastic support from the technical managers. Previously, they were not getting in, and this process was not in place for them. It was a process was in place for them, but these managers were not following those changes. But now they have submitted all their change requests to them, and now they have to figure it out how they are going to process all these 437 plus change request. So what he has done is he has just pick up some of the change requests, and he thought, let's apply 80 and 20 plus rule. That 20% of the changes would pose 70% of the 80% of the risk. So he just picked up few of the cards, and they started discussing about it. And what they have done is, they have categorized changes into three different categories. So first is the fragile sort of changes. So these are the changes that would impact the system very badly if they something goes wrong with it. And for these sort of changes, they have marked as a high risk, and it must be authorized by the CAP team. So what they have planned is they will create a top 10 most fragile services, application, and infrastructure, and any change request that could affect any of these would be immediately flagged for CAB scrutiny. And when they wanted to implement it, they should be having, the key users should be aware of them, and in not only aware, they should be on a standby in case something goes wrong. So this is the first new category they have planned it. And apart from that, what they have also decided is they will send out two emails to business team based on the previous implementation, what they have learned from it and what was the outcome of it, so that business would have some idea before requesting some changes that, what was the success rate of it and what might be going wrong with if they are implementing these sort of changes. So he is just, implementing or making sure that the processes which they have are being correctly implemented, or the improving on the existing process. So the second category of the changes he made is all the changes they do all the times, and these are all about the changes. These are the changes they have done previously, and it does not require it does not poses any risk to them. So what they have planned for it, for these sort of changes, are they have marked these changes as low risk changes and or the standard changes. So what they have is they don't have to approve these changes. It would be pre-approved, and it can be scheduled without the approval from the CAP team. Next is the medium changes that they have categorized into, and these are the changes where they have to just ensure that integrity of the process are not being impacted, and they have given this responsibility to developers only, that they should be informing the appropriate team, associated team that might impact the system, and proceed with that changes. So the change submitter has the responsibility and accountability for consulting and getting approval from the people potentially affected. Once they do that, they submit their change request for us to review and approve for this scheduling. So yeah, they just try to categorize all 437 requests, and they have categorized into three different categories, and categories, and they have come up with new rules or procedures regarding those changes. Another point they discuss is these are the processes at the moment they are doing manually, and this should be automated. And this we cannot sustain with the manual work, and it should be for the future. For the future, the best possible solution would be to automate it. So yeah, that was all they have discussed in the CAB meeting, and that is the conclusion of chapter 8. So yeah, that's it. What the summary of chapter 8.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we are in a position where we have all the whatever change requests which they are going to complete. So they have segregated that into three different types, and now they'll be tackling that one by one. So maybe that would be we can look forward to in the next chapters. Any volunteers for chapter 9? I know Mustaq was going to take it. Unfortunately, he's not done that. So anyone has read chapter 9, if they can just throw some light on that, maybe, or else maybe we can take that on the next week.
I think we can retro these three chapters, and I think we can.
Yeah. Okay then. So, like, anyone has any concerns over that? Aveen Singh, we can start in retrospective.
Animesh, where is quiz?
Yeah.
We have to again apologize because the power is back just now.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make the quiz, but it was like I would have to come so close to the screen, and we did not have power since morning.
No worries.
I did not create the quiz. I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries.
Okay, I think that should be okay. Maybe we can have something in the next session. So, like, any discussion points we have from this 60 chapters? Yeah. So one.
Girish had to go and attend to an emergency, so he might.
Yeah,
not be
he
back
had sent a
by the
message.
time we finish this, unfortunately.
So yeah, one learning point from the chapter 7 was if we have a list of tasks at hand, then maybe we can look at which task is like more important and which has a more impact on the system, and then we can try to pick that first instead of going a sequence. Because even in a day-to-day life, even for me, I get a lot of Jiras to work on, and if I pick that one by one in a sequential manner, then maybe there's a task which is left behind, and maybe I would not leave that much amount of time to complete that task. So it's better to pick that task beforehand and complete it, and maybe we can keep the other small changes which are like cosmetic changes at the end, so that if we even like cover it on a very high scale, it doesn't impact much. But if there's some change which is impacting the entire system, if suppose the integration system itself is breaking, then I think we should first pick that up. This just a learning from the chapter 7, how to prioritize work.
Another thing I was thinking from the chapter 8, right? So on the entire weekend, he spent on the preparation for the PPT, and at the end he was not convinced, or he was not satisfied that he has given sufficient time for it, and he was wishing that I could have done better for it. But yeah, in the end, the way he was just visualizing everything, and he was very pessimistic about it, how the meeting is going to be. But yeah, it was not the way he was expecting it, and Steve was having another mindset. So but yeah, the way Bill was convincing him, and he was putting up his point, that these are the challenges he's facing up, but in the end he did not get the response which he was expecting, or the support which he was expecting from this Steve. But the team which he has given a task to, were really working on the to on the workaround, how to reduce if we don't have any solution for it, but if that's not the end of the thing, there should be definitely something we could do about it the best possible way. And they came up with how to reduce their work, and how to work on all these 143 requests with the existing resources. So yeah, if we have a discussions, and if we have all the data, we can come up with these sort of workaround. No, there is not only one solution for one problem. There definitely could be more solutions for it.
Yeah, that's right.
But still, we are not coming to DevOps part of it. Hopefully, we'll
At least we're trying to understand
how the
how
world
it's working at it, because we have different teams interacting, and because I am working on a DevOps model completely. Like my project is an agile project, so I know different teams working, and then they are trying to come up, and we have these issues also coming up, then the meetings going on and all, trying to correlate that. So at least by now, okay, so this work is leading to the DevOps, because we have different teams and they're collaborating, and the issues coming in, and they're, so the resourcing, the staffing, so how to prioritize the work. So this is all happening in agile mode. So because they are not planning it, it's like it's coming up on ad hoc basis. So yeah, that's one of the thing which DevOps supports. And they're talking about automating that, because the manual, if you do it manually, it will never work. That's the old school thing. But you have to think of automation. So whatever we're doing, so next thing is automation. Even if you're doing some manual work, so anyways you have to come up with automation, so that no creating a regression back would anyways be beneficial for you, so that you can run that every time when there's a new change going in. So yeah, that is also one of the part of DevOps, where you automate the old things and then you add the new things to it, and then you run that end to end with the entire pack.
Few interesting things that I personally noticed was the way the characters are getting built in the story. May it be that of Bill Palmer, may it be that of Steve, which is not completely built yet, but we know that he has a technique called as TJ. What did you say? Conversational hypnosis. I think you had
Yes, conversational hypnosis.
conversational hypnosis. So how people are manipulative, right? Or even made be Patty for that matter. When Bill proposed a whole new thing to look at the support tickets, Patty was almost in tears, right? She had invested so much in creating this process, and now we have to do it all over again. To which Bill very calmly mentioned that we understand that you have invested a lot in this, but this is not working for us, right? And we need to build something which will be not possible without your help. A lot of times we get into situations wherein we have to have a conversation wherein we need to go with a different idea, but we have to take down the original idea first. So how to be empathetic towards people who have put in heart and soul into something is something that I come to know from this. Like the way he has the conversations is really nice, or the 3 second rule that he pauses at, right? When Steve tells him that everything is a priority and you also need to do what we all are supposed to do here. And he takes a 3 second pause so that he is not reacting rather than he's responding, or he's at least reflecting and thinking, giving it a thought rather than just making it an abrupt burst of his emotions. That was something interesting. Or even if you look at the character of Dr. Reed, that how he has built that, he doesn't know details, or he has almost got everybody's name incorrect, right? Right from the CFO to any other person. But when he goes to see that facility plan, he specifically remembers the name of the security person, Dorothy, right? And he's amazed that how does this guy have details of somebody and not even know anything about the team or people that he just worked with. So that person, I believe that person is going to come again into picture is what at least I'm hoping, because they won't leave a character that is built unfinished like that. But something that amused me was how even the CEO thought that everything is a priority. Because I was reading a book called Essentialism, and in that I came to know about an interesting anecdote, and that is about the word priority. That the word priority was introduced to English language in the year 1400, and it was singular. That means it was priority, and it remained singular for the next 700 years. Only in 1900 did we pluralize it and made it priorities. And now we have multiple priorities, right? The sole purpose of creating something that told that there is only one thing that is most important and that should be your priority is lost. And that's why we are having these all things, right? There are too many work in progress items, which is creating backlog, which is creating these bottlenecks and all. And we see that every day. every day when we work, where everything is a priority. And when everything is important, that means nothing is really, really important. Right? So I'm just reflecting on my experience and the way they are creating these characters. Unfortunately, even I did not have an opportunity to read chapter 9, but I took an Audible membership. So 1 month is free with Audible membership, and you get 1 credit. Use that credit to buy Audible book. So I bought Phoenix book. So now I can also listen to it. So when I had like 1.5 hour today, I went through chapter 6, 7, 8. So I did not get an opportunity to read them. So for those of you who are also audio listeners or like to listen, this is also a good investment. They charge only 199 every month, and you get 1 credit with it, with which you can buy any book. So that's also an interesting investment, I believe.
So one more thing which came out of chapter 6, the way Bill has visualized the meeting room where the people are fighting for getting rid of the automated process and going back to the manual process. So looking from the Bill's position, he is heading IT, he's a VP of IT operations. So both things are important for him. You know, one side is I think the person who has built the release management system had taken a lot of efforts to automate it, and another side is the entire team who has n number of reasons to reject it. They were just pointing out to, they have, when you go to them, they will say that it's not going to work. So that situation was really chaotic, and as a leader, I think he did a good thing. He wanted the people to realize that you are doing wrong, and he put out took out some cards and asked people to put the releases and prioritize it accordingly. And I'm not sure how the things was going to happen in the later chapters, but what I feel is he wanted to make people, his team, realize that the manual processes will lead to a lot of mistakes and a lot of things, and you cannot prioritize it. So that is one good lesson learned. I looked it from the different perspective, and even I imagined there was one when we were doing, when I was working with HSBC, there was one legacy system we need to scrap it and bring a new system, a new enterprise system, third party system. That this was the same thing. People were the portfolio managers, users, those who want to use it, they had a number of reasons to reject it. So when you try to bring some new change, some new thing, the first thing people will look at, they will reject it. So changes needs to be put in slowly. I think the bill has started it, implementing in a different way. Let's see how it goes.
And they also introduced to the Pareto principle, right?
Yeah.
20% does 80% of value, adds
Yes.
80% of value. So, cool. I think those chapters were really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I enjoyed
Yeah, definitely.
listening to them. I couldn't read it this time.
Started raining here.
Yeah, it's heavily raining.
Heavily raining, very heavily.
But enjoy the rains. It's not raining here, it's only humid. And
Yeah. So where are you? Are you in Mumbai?
no, actually, I'm in Ahmednagar district. The place is called
Okay.
Sri Rampur. It's
Oh,
about 30
Sri Rampur.
kilometers from Shirdi. Yeah.
I know Sri Rampur.
You know Sri Rampur? How do you know Sri Rampur?
Two reasons. I think Zahir Khan is there from, and one of my college HOD was there from Sri Lanka.
Oh, okay. What's his name?
Rizwan. He's Rizwan. Rizwan sir.
Okay.
He was my HOD when I was learning when I was in MCA.
Yeah, Zair lives in. He used to live. Now they have brought down